Hey everybody, welcome back to a study on Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, an Antidote for Chaos. Today's video will be on Rule 3, make friends with people who want the best for you. If you haven't had a chance to check out the videos on the first two rules, click on the link at the top right of the screen now. I'm going to be uploading the videos on the 12 rules weekly, so if you enjoy this video and you want to check out the other ones, don't forget to subscribe. So without further ado, I bring you rule number 3. Make friends with people who want the best for you. So he starts this chapter off by talking about his childhood in a small Canadian town. He talks about his childhood friends and how many of them ended up getting into drugs and alcohol and partying with the lack of things to do in their rural town. There are no secrets in a small town, and everybody knew everybody else's business, and it was a breeding ground for resentment. Not everybody was like this, but for the most part, the general consensus was a cynical view on the world. And children tend to fit in wherever they go, and to fit in with the popular crowd, one would have to adopt an attitude of indifference. Caring about your schoolwork or trying to better yourself were things that were basically looked down upon by the popular crowd. And so if one didn't want to be excluded from the group, they had to adopt the mind state of their peers. Now, most of the people that dove into this mind state head first ended up getting stuck in the town permanently. But when Jordan Peterson goes to college, it's his first experience being around people with a much better mind state when it comes to bettering yourself. Here were people that were encouraging his positive behavior and trying to go to school and get a degree and do something with his life. And so once again, he managed to fit right in, but this time it was in a positive way as they all encouraged each other to grow. Finally, being around like-minded people, he was able to drop the act that he had to put on to fit in his hometown, and with this he began to let go of his past and start to become a whole new person. Now, this attitude that he adopted with this change is not always easy. Sometimes people cling to their past and refuse to grow and start new. A perfect example of this is the people who go on vacation and instead of exploring the new area that they're in and getting an idea of what the local culture is like, they instead squander away the whole vacation by doing the same things that they would be doing in their hometown, going to bars and partying and the like. One of the hardest things about applying this rule in your life is you start to outgrow some of those old friends that are stuck in the same patterns. However difficult it may be to let go of these old people, it is nowhere near as difficult as being the type of person who gets stuck in these old patterns. He talks about one of his childhood friends as an example. This man was intelligent and had a lot of potential, but was continuously surrounding himself with bad influences and never made much of his life. He shirked all forms of responsibility in the pursuit of pleasure and ended up working a series of dead-end jobs in which he felt were beneath him. This type of existence brought him much misery, and in this misery, he came to adopt the philosophy of nihilism. Nihilism is the rejection of all religious and moral principles in the belief that life is meaningless. He was able to avoid some of the shame that came with not reaching his full potential by adopting this meaningless view on life. However, it didn't do much to lessen his misery, and he very soon started to experiment with a lot of drugs to try to help numb the pain. Many years of repeating the same negative patterns over and over again in his life broke his spirit, and he eventually committed suicide in his 30s. One of the fathers of psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud, referred to this pattern of behavior as repetition compulsion. Repetition compulsion is a psychological phenomenon in which a person repeats an event or its circumstances over and over again, thus includes reenacting the event or putting oneself in situations where the event is likely to happen again. This psychological phenomenon is a defense mechanism one develops so that they can contend with their lack of self-worth. You are completely unwilling to learn any better, and you surround yourself with people who mirror your own shortcomings. It's almost as if you were to see anybody that was doing better and living in a better way, it would remind you of your own insufficiencies, therefore making you unhappy with your current state of affairs. And so rather than facing a hard truth about yourself and trying to make the necessary changes, instead we take the easy route and cut those types of people out of our life and only surround ourselves with the like-minded people that are also living in a negative way, thus making it seem normal. These type of relationships tend to be bitter and resentful. And it's when you adopt this mind state that you are doomed to repeat the patterns that make your life so difficult over and over again. He also brings up another rationalization on why we surround ourselves with negative-minded people. And this one is on codependency. Sometimes we hang around people that aren't a good influence on us in hopes that we might save them. Oftentimes when we do this, we tie our own self-worth with our ability to be able to help this person. The major problem with this is some people don't want to change. Some people don't want to be helped. And the real question we should be asking ourselves is, can we really help anybody in the state that we are currently in? Sometimes we overestimate our capacities and bite off more than we can chew. He makes an example of this by referring to the great Russian author Fyodor Dostoevsky in Notes from the Underground. In the novel, the protagonist attempts to help a woman who is struggling and forced to adopt a lifestyle of prostitution. Now, the man in the underground is by no means a perfect character. He knowingly lists all of his shortcomings and then attempts to explain them away with excuses, but these excuses hardly excuse the full extent to his shortcomings. Regardless of this, he tries to help this woman anyway, and after consoling her and talking with her for a little bit, she goes off and he doesn't see her for a while, and he reflects to himself that he's totally changed her life with his attention that he's paid to her, and feels quite good about himself. Shortly afterwards, she returns to him in a worse state than ever and requires more help of him that is beyond his capabilities. And being in a sour mood after having been insulted earlier in the day, he takes out all his anger on her and picks her character apart for not being able to change her life for the better. The woman is horrified at being treated and talked to in the way that she has been by him, and he ends up making things much worse. And so in the case for the man in the underground, he did not try to help this woman out of the kindness of his heart and trying to share in his success in life. He did so from a place of inflated self-importance, and so his motives were narcissistic. And then his handling of the situation was careless and even malevolent. Now, he doesn't want to make a point that helping people is bad. And so to make a stark comparison between the man from the underground, he brings up Jesus Christ. Christ's whole life was spent helping the people, the suffering masses. Now, the main difference here is Christ was the archetype of the perfect man. And being the personification of a perfect man, he was in the position to help people, and his motives for doing so were pure. So the question is, are we like the man from the underground, or are we like Christ when we attempt to help people who are less fortunate than us? The fact of the matter is, if we try to help these types of people before we are ready, we most oftentimes make their lives and ours worse. We must help ourselves before we can help anybody else. A perfect example of this is when training to become a lifeguard, they teach you to approach a drowning man feet first. This way, if the drowning man panics and tries to pull you under with him, you are able to kick him off of you and save yourself. For it would be foolish to sacrifice yourself for no reason and go down with the drowning man yourself. Another example he gives is in the workplace. In the workplace, there could be a team of coworkers that work very well together, that are highly efficient and successful. Their supervisor could see their teamwork, and having another employee who's a bit of a problem and is not doing so well, he might think to himself, if he put this problem employee in the group of overachievers, that maybe they would rub off on him and he would also start to perform well. However, studies show that that is not the case. What ends up happening is the slacker continues to slack and causes disruption within the group that has been doing well. The other people in the group have to pick up the pace in order to make up for what the weak link is not doing. And this quickly breeds resentment when they think about the fact that they are getting paid the same amount as this man to do twice as much work. Thus, the group dynamic falls apart and productivity quickly goes down. This type of phenomenon can be observed everywhere, which seems to point to a universal truth. It is much easier to fail than it is to succeed. It is much easier to go down than to go up. So for the people who rationalize hanging around with people that aren't great for them under the disguise of trying to help them, you must ask yourself, what are your motives? Do you have a genuine desire to help? And if so, do you have the capability of actually helping? Or are you trying to look good or feel good about yourself by surrounding yourself with people that make you seem way better than you actually are by comparison? Another way we may find ourselves surrounded by people that aren't good for us is the pursuit of pleasure. When we pursue pleasure above all other things, we sacrifice the future for the now. Rather than doing the responsible, more difficult things that set us up for the best possible outcome in the future, we instead use our effort to pursue the pleasures of the flesh in the present moment. It's in this pursuit that we tend to attract the like-minded people in our lives that are also pursuing the same pleasure and foregoing their future. He sums this point up humorously by quoting the cartoon character Homer Simpson. He quotes Homer right as he's about to chug a jar of mayonnaise filled with vodka, saying, "That's a problem for future Homer. Man, I don't envy that guy." So in a further attempt to persuade us to let go of the people of our past that have been dragging us down, he puts into question the tendency people have to play the victim. Now, we've already established that failure is much easier than success, and so when people aren't doing well, it's very common for them to try to point the finger at the outside world and play the victim. However, being the victim is much less likely than somebody who has just shirked their responsibilities and taken the easier path in life and is reaping the consequences of that decision. He brings up a very interesting point. Nobody has to explain their failures and their vices. These seem to be universally understood. When somebody is struggling, we really don't need to know the details to understand that state of mind. And when somebody partakes in vices to ease themselves of the burden that their life has placed on them, such as drinking alcohol, nobody ever calls that into question and they take it with relative normality. However, if one abstains from vices, an explanation is required. Try telling somebody at a social gathering where alcohol is being consumed that you do not drink. Very rarely will they just take that at face value. They want to know why. And so the real danger of continuing to surround yourself with people that aren't good for you is some people would rather use you than accept your help and better themselves. After all, misery loves company. They would much rather stay blind to the truth that could set them free and just angrily blame the world for all their misfortunes. It is so easy to fail to begin with. Do you really need to handicap yourself by trying to carry dead weight with you as you try to struggle along in the path of life? Some of us have dug some quite deep holes that we need to escape out of if we ever hope to have some sort of success in the future. It is not easy to dig yourself out of these holes, and some people dig holes so deep that the likelihood of them ever getting out of it is very slim. The late great psychologist Carl Rogers stated that in order to make a beginning in psychotherapy, one must have the desire to change. A psychologist could have all the ability and tools at his disposal to help somebody with their issues, but the one thing they cannot provide for their client is this desire, and without it, they are unable to make even a start. A perfect example of this is people who are court-ordered to therapy and to drug and alcohol treatment. Very rarely do these types of people succeed in these forms of care because they lack the essential desire to change their behavior and wouldn't be there in the first place if a judge hadn't made them go. So by no means is any of this a cop-out. He's not suggesting that it's not okay to help people. Instead, what he's saying is let go of the people that don't want to be helped in the first place. Only then can you make room and time for the people to come into your life that actually do want to change and grow with you. And in the meantime, try to live your life by leading by example. And you can always be hopeful that maybe someday down the line, these people who have refuse to grow may one day have a change of heart and attempt to catch up with you. And then he proposes a profound rule of thumb for this rule. If you have a friend whose friendship you wouldn't recommend to your sister or your father or your son, why would you have such a friend for yourself? If you justify these toxic relationships by saying that you are a loyal person, you must ask yourself, what is it that you are loyal to? Is it really moral to cling to something that makes the world and your life worse? Wouldn't it be better to take this misplaced loyalty and place it in somebody who has a symbiotic relationship with you? Somebody who has a positive effect on you and you a positive effect on them. When you do surround yourself with these positive influences, they will begin to encourage you to grow and to do the things that you should have been doing for yourself all along. They will hold you accountable when you stop doing the things that you should and continue to motivate you to grow. One thing we can be sure of is it's hard enough to stay motivated to do the right thing as we go through our lives. If we continue to surround our people that want to drag us down and become envious whenever we achieve something, for it shines a light on their own shortcomings, then it's downright impossible to stay motivated. Now, by no means is letting go of this old negative crowd and replacing them with a new positive one an easy thing to do. It takes some serious strength, humility, and courage to stand next to people who are living your ideal, that shine a light on how far you have to go and make your shortcomings seem painfully obvious. But this difficulty will all be worth it as you rise through the ranks and grow closer and closer to your own ideal. In his conclusion of the book, he proposes a series of questions. One of those questions being, what shall I do with a fallen soul? Well, his answer is, offer a genuine and cautious hand, but do not join it in the mire. He explains this by saying, don't cast pearls before swine. In other words, don't waste your good character on people who could care less about it. It's pointless in trying to share your hard-earned wisdom with people that don't want to hear it. And finally, don't camouflage vice for virtue. There are tons of vices out there that we use as a way to feel a little bit better about ourselves. It's easy to wrap these vices up in a shiny package and make them look virtuous. After all, a sincere desire to help somebody less fortunate than you is a very commendable act. However, if we took a long, hard look at our motives, what would we find? How often we do virtuous things to inflate our ego rather than doing them because they are right. And so, surround yourself with people who want the best for you. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and join me next week for Rule 4. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to keep up with these videos as they come out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.